Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live series with Ella Davar. And today we are going to be talking with her about something that a lot of people with PCOS know about but don't really know about, which is leaky gut and the gut microbiome. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that kind of plays into PCOS symptoms and PCOS care and what we should be looking for with leaky gut or the microbiome. So Ella, welcome. Thank you for coming on today and sharing your expertise with us. I would love you to give everyone a little bit of background on yourself and your expertise.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So my name is Ella Davar, and I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, a health coach, a yoga instructor, and a theta healer. I became a dietitian because I struggled with my own health. Like I struggled with skin issues, with stubborn weight loss, being constantly bloated and stressed out. Also, I had gastritis, I have digestive issues. So that ignited my passion for healthy lifestyle, right? So back in the days, around 9 years ago, I became a yoga instructor and a health coach, and eventually got a medical degree in clinical nutrition. And nowadays, I help my clients with multiple symptoms and health issues to optimize their metabolic health and their digestive health with optimal nutrition, supplements, and personalized protocols. So many people realizing these days that general nutrition advice is not sufficient enough, right? We all have unique bio individuality and makeup. So that's where I come in. I specialize in personalization of nutrition and diet advice based on your food sensitivities, intolerances, inflammation levels, allergies, and specific health conditions. One person's food might be another person's poison, but more or less there's a lot of things that we can agree on, and that's what I want to share today. Some of the specific recommendations related to PCOS prevention, reversal, and heart disease.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that, especially that you talk about personalized care, because PCOS is a syndrome, which means not every person is going to have the same needs. That's why it's so important that we talk about PCOS in a personalized approach, because a lot of people deal with symptoms, different symptoms, because it's a syndrome. So it's not one set group of symptoms for each patient. They can vary in the number of symptoms they have and the severity. So it's really important to talk about that. So let's talk about this a little bit as far as PCOS and the microbiome, because according to a study by the European Journal of Endocrinology, there are biomarkers for gut permeability that is increased in PCOS women and correlates with insulin resistance and severity of menstrual disorders. So these studies have also found that there's an increased likelihood for irritable bowel syndrome associated with leaky gut, and women with PCOS are also predisposed to increased inflammation and overreactive immune system. So we have a lot to break down here, and I would love you to explain a little bit more about what leaky gut is and what that means for someone who may have PCOS.
Okay, so first of all, it's unclear what causes what. Is it the leaky gut that might cause PCOS, or it's the opposite? It's the PCOS that might cause leaky gut, right? But that's why I specialize in health overall, where I provide not only nutrition and food recommendations, right? But because a lot of people say these days, like, no matter how much broccoli you eat, if you're overly stressed out and you live inside this negative toxic environment, you're not going to be healthy, right? So healthy lifestyle, healthy mindset, and nutrition. But when it comes to specifically to gut permeability and leaky gut, what happens over the last 20 to 25 years, as you know, that as food industry developed, right? And we've developed a lot of convenient foods, right? And food as abundant these days, right? US government and World Health Organization worked tirelessly on making sure that everyone is provided a piece of food, right? But it's not necessarily the healthiest foods, right? It's very often convenient, cheap, stimulated by some of the growth hormones or GMOs and some chemicals and pesticides. But as long as it feeds the population, that solves the problem overall, right? But when it comes to one-on-one and people who end up having health issues, that's when we need to be very careful about how and what we are putting in our mouth and nourishing ourselves with. So basically what causes leaky gut permeability in the last 20 years or so is the fact that we have a lot of different chemicals in our food, and our bodies are created perfectly by nature, are struggling to adjust to that. So our gut lining is very sensitive tissue, right? And the cells of it are ruptured by the amount of abuse on a daily basis every day. And if you see, most people nowadays are product of the environment, right? So ever since we're so, we give birth to our child, we feed them products that are packaged in plastic, plastic bottles, plastic, and it comes with a ton of ingredients, like a big ingredient list, right? And all of those things, most people think like, oh, like they're created for us. No, they're created for someone to make a profit. And, behind every product that comes into your kitchen, there's a strategy, a marketing, plan, a campaign on how to make more money by selling people foods that are convenient, that people would buy, right? That people would think, solve their problem because everyone's busy these days, right? So that's what leaky gut is. That's why it became so popular and in the last like 15, 20 years, right, amongst the functional medicine practitioner, because it causes a lot of symptoms. Basically, when your cells of the gut lining cells, they're supposed to be very tight, it's called the tight junctions, right? When day after day, when meal after meal, we're consuming certain substances, like I mentioned before, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, food additives, what they do is they damage the lining slowly but surely, which causes it to be not as tight anymore. And that's what causes the leaky gut, where through those junctions that are not as tight between the cells, basically what gets into the blood are the compounds that are not supposed to be there, right? So and that's when we get the when we do the food and sensitivity testing, we find that certain foods triggers more than others because they get into our blood without being either digested properly or not being enzymatically absorbed according to our metabolism. So that's what happens. And then once that happens, that causes inflammation, because our body is triggered into the SOS response, like, oh my God, I got to deal with this. What is this, right? And what inflammation, as it's a good thing, right? So what our body is trying to survive, right? When we hit ourselves, the part of the body that we hit turns red and swollen, right? That's inflammation, because our body is trying to send as many immune cells there as possible to repair it, to heal it, right? But the low-grade inflammation that a lot of us are exposed to, caused by leaky gut and the highly toxic, environment and food intake, that's what becomes a chronic inflammation, that every day we're exposed to chemicals that get into our system where they're not supposed to be, and our body every day is dealing with that, right? Every day it's trying to survive, basically, and as I say, like wasting its immune cells and its power on all those things. And then somehow, like, it can only take abuse for so long, and then after a while it just gets into sort of like the weakest tissue or the organ that just starts failing, right? And a lot of people say to me, like, oh, when you get older, your metabolism slows down, or like you start to have health issues. That's the mentality. But in reality, that's only causes because you don't take care of it, right? But if you take care of things, they last, right? So that's where I come in as an educator these days. And my mission is to educate the young people, right? To prevent these things from happening, because everyone these days, if you talk to them, everyone has either relative in their family or knows someone who's struggling with lifestyle related disease.
Absolutely. And you touched on a couple of things that I think are really important, because when we're eating foods that are highly processed or convenient, that means that our bodies aren't really getting the nutrients that they need. And I know a lot of patients, in particular with PCOS, they are deficient in a lot of key nutrients like vitamin A, like magnesium, zinc, vitamin D. So what should we be doing to change that? What kind of food should we be eating, or help us? What should we do?
Okay, so I have a few videos and I often talk about my approach to nutrition. It's called the anti-inflammatory diet, which covers at least like 6 different superfoods and like important food groups that everyone should incorporate. I'm going to briefly mention it, but you know, if you could look it up on YouTube and find more information about it under, you know, Ella Davar and anti-inflammatory diet. Number 1 is protein. Protein-rich foods help you to stabilize your insulin levels, which is a hormone responsible for weight gain, and therefore insulin stabilizes other hormones. So protein at almost at every meal, whether it's full-fat dairy, you know, poultry, meat, seafood specifically. So seafood specifically my favorite source of protein because it's also rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which is essential for heart health and cognitive health and prevention of cognitive decline. That's my number 1 recommendation. Number 2 recommendations are green leafy vegetables at every meal. Most people are deficient in fiber intake, and also some of the proteins that I mentioned comes with you know, less healthy fats, and to balance out the cholesterol we must eat it with the green leafy vegetables that are high in fiber and antioxidants, powerful antioxidants that help our liver to detoxify and help our skin to glow. And in the same group are colorful vegetables. The deeper the color, the more the variety of the colors on your plate, like eat the rainbow, the more antioxidants you consume, and therefore the healthier you'll be. And my favorite colorful vegetable, I mean, I also love berries and like fruits and berries. And berries are my favorite because they're lowest in sugar and highest in fiber. So my favorite, you know, recommendations are berries.
Berries, I
Then,
love it.
yeah, and then the third recommendation is probiotic rich foods. Not a lot of dietitians or doctors talking about it, but probiotics help us to optimize microbiome, and PCOS is strongly associated with low microbial diversity in our gut. And how do we improve that? I mean, yes, we can take probiotics, but it's not a sustainable approach to that, right? And the best thing to do is to make sure to consume at least 1 source of probiotic foods a day. And namely, those are kombuchas, fermented vegetables, right? Pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, and pickled carrots and beets, all of those things. So what's your favorite probiotic, Ashley?
I would have to say beets. I mean, I am like a total beet girl. And also I know that it's really good for your heart as well.
Yes, nitric oxide.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely, you could feed me beets all day and I'd be a happy young lady. And
You're a lucky girl. And a lot of people, a lot of Americans that I deal with, they don't like taste of beets, so I make them consume it in supplemental form, like a dried powdered form. But those who love the taste are lucky people to be able to enjoy it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but there are different things that you can do with it too. Like I roast them and then I like put in a little bit of vinegar with them. I mean, there are ways you can spice them up and, you know, change things around a little bit. So that's awesome. And, you know, you actually kind of helped me segue into something, because I was going to talk about or ask you, are probiotics and prebiotics a good starting point for people? And I know you talked about the supplementation, but can you go into a little bit more about the types of foods that would be prebiotic or probiotic, and kind of what's the difference, or do you need to do both, or is one better than the other?
So to optimize your microbiome, which is the total gut bacteria right inside your intestines that helps you to break down the nutrients to be able to absorb it better, and to optimize the total makeup, we need both probiotic and prebiotics. The difference is probiotics are the gut-friendly bacteria, the live bacteria that already exist there, and that we need to. And there's a balance. There's gut-friendly and and those that are cause inflammation. And when, depending on what we eat and the lifestyle we live, one outgrow the other one, and we need to have the gut friendly ones more. And how do we do that? We feed them, because as I said, they're live gut bacteria. And what do we feed them with, right? We feed them with prebiotic, which are like the nourishment for the gut-friendly bacteria. And what does gut-friendly bacteria require to thrive on? Those mostly fiber-rich foods, the ones that I mentioned, the colorful and green leafy vegetables, anything that you have to really chew has this fiber that helps probiotics to thrive. For example, and let me ask you, which one do you think has more prebiotics in fiber, asparagus or zucchini?
That's a tough one. I would have to say asparagus.
Right. What about celery or cucumber?
I would have to go with celery on that.
Okay, the last one, kale or romaine lettuce?
Kale.
Yes, so you see, right, the ones that are harder to chew, those are the ones that have the most amount of fiber. And what it does is once it gets into our intestines, it ferments there, right? And what it creates actually vitamin K, which is something that our body is able to produce. Not a lot of people realize it. And most things, the things that we require are the green leafy vegetables. So prebiotic are the fibers and starches that are, digested in our intestines and digested by probiotics, which feed off all of those foods that I just mentioned. And therefore, the probiotics help our microbiome to produce more immune cells. Not a lot of people realize that immunity is actually 80% comes from our gut, and also the happy hormones. The low microbiome diversity also associated with depression and anxiety, because the serotonin, which is a happy hormone, 80 to 90% of it is originated from our gut. So that's another reason to optimize our microbiome, is to feel better, because of the gut-brain axis, where our brain communicates with our gut, and it helps us to improve our well-being.
Well, as a community, we've been talking about how mental health isn't really talked about much, and there's a very large group of patients with PCOS who suffer from depression. 45% suffer from anxiety, and it's 34% suffer from depression. And we were talking about the connection between leaky gut and PCOS. I mean, it seems like it's all interrelated in some way. And it just like, that totally was like an epiphany for me when you said that. So yeah, if we're treating the leaky gut or the PCOS, or if we have a mood disorder, maybe that'll help overall health for everyone with eating right and learning more about this. So since we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Heart for PCOS, I need to ask you, can the microbiome or leaky gut or disrupted gut lining be an underlying issue for the creation of cardiovascular disease?
Yes, because it all correlated to the nourishment and the foods that we eat. Heart disease is also called a lifestyle-related disease, which means the lifestyle, like the choices that we make, the movement throughout the day, right? And our nourishment. Everything we eat, you know how they say, eat your vegetables, and you are what you eat. And those oversimplified statement actually has a lot of science, a lot of like a big message behind them, because each vegetable comes with a ton of nutrients, not just like not micronutrients like minerals and vitamins, but also antioxidants. Those powerful antioxidants there. I specialize in longevity these days, and prevention of age-related disease, and where these people now take it in the supplement form, not just like I said, vitamins and minerals, but antioxidants. So, and cardiovascular diseases very often is related to a low intake of those antioxidants that help us to prolong the life of our heart, which works the hardest muscle that makes everything work in our body, right? The most underappreciated organ. what we need is to pay more attention of how we nourish it. And the most powerful antioxidants for heart are resveratrol. It's the red compound, which is found in dark red colored fruits and berries, such as red grapes, red wine, and even like pomegranate. That's what I'm drinking right now, diluted with water. Pomegranates, yeah. And also, the way we nourish ourselves, the antioxidants are very important, and it's like it's all interconnected, so that's why I'm having a hard time to choose a specialization, because like I said, when we treat one thing, other things get better, right? And that's why it's all interconnected. So when it comes to heart health, the most important is your nourishment and your antioxidants. And antioxidants, I'll give you a quick tip. Like, the deeper the color of the fruits or vegetables that you eat, the more antioxidants. Quick question: which one do you think has more antioxidants, wild blueberries or regular blueberries?
That's a tough one. Wild, I'm gonna say.
Wild ones. I don't know if you noticed that when you eat wild blueberries, your whole mouth turns purple. When you eat regular blueberries, they're just like white inside, right? And the difference is the amount of antioxidants. I'll ask you another question for you to start thinking this way. Have you ever seen the wild caught salmon and regular salmon and how they differ? What's the difference?
There's a deeper color.
Yes, and what responsible for this color is this specific antioxidant that's called astaxanthin. It's a deep red color. Also, the salmon raw, like the fish eggs, this deep orange color, that's where it's the richest, and also omega-3. So all of those antioxidants are essential for our heart health and to prevention of heart disease.
And I also love the fact that you were talking about resveratrol, and that gives me more reason to love red wine and drink red wine. So thank you for that.
The only thing with alcohol, since I said it, right, I don't want you to use it as a permission to drink. 1 glass of wine for women, no, that's the dose, no more than like 2 or 3 times per week, and never, and I'm going to underline this again, never on an empty stomach. Only, yes, because of the ethanol content of red wine, right? And it crosses the blood-brain barrier and it kills your brain cells, basically, because your body having a hard time to detoxify ethanol from your brain. And the next day when we have a hangover, that's your body is detoxifying all of you from your body. So how do you slow down the ethanol absorption from the blood-brain barrier is consuming red wine with sources of protein, fats, and fiber. So whenever you're drinking, like, and all these parties are coming up right now for the Christmas, right? Always make sure you grab something from the, if you're at a cocktail party, something from the charcuterie board, right? If you know French people, they always drink it with cheese, with cold cuts, right? With nuts. All of these things help to balance it out. So yeah, number 1 rule, never on an empty stomach, always with some fatty or protein rich or fiber rich, and drink more water. For each glass of wine you drink, you have to drink at least 1 glass of water.
And I love this because I think that's another really big problem that patients with PCOS have. I know that I've had is food choices, because a lot of times we're told we have to restrict this or eat a certain amount of that, or, change everything. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts on about foods, because I hate to say any food is bad, except of course, like the processed and the things that we know we shouldn't eat as much of. But are there any things that are really truly off limits or that we should try to avoid or eat less of with PCOS?
So I would, when it comes to hormonal health, there's such a term that's called endocrine disrupting chemicals, and those are the food additives, right? So anything that you buy that is a packaged product, right, which we can't pretend like it doesn't exist. Like even me, myself, like, I'm very busy, like I buy those sometimes, but the rule is when you look at the ingredient list, it must be most of the like simple terms of the foods that you can recognize, right? And no more than 10 ingredients. Once it's over the board with that, you know that it's a highly processed product, right? Even though no matter what they say in the front of the packaging, right? It's good for you, it's got the fiber, it's healthy, all these things. No, remember, this product was created by someone to make money, to make it look like a good thing to buy, right? But now for yourself and for prevention for PCOS, I would minimize the amount of those endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are most of the food coloring, food additives, all the thickeners, all the flavors, and artificial sugar substitutes. So when it comes to all of those, zero sugar, sugar-free foods, those are again created because people started to get being aware of what sugar does to us, but none of those substitutes are natural. Most of them are created in chemical labs and are artificial, and our body, as I said earlier, basically wasting our immune cells on being able to metabolize it. So anything with the OL at the end, those are called sugar alcohol. So like erythritol, right? And those are like regarded to be as safe, but I try to minimize those as much as possible. And quite frankly, I would rather you have your grandma's piece of cake than all of those, zero sugar added nonsense that's still very sweet, and that's just the chemical bomb.
I love that. I love that. It's sticking to the basics really. And throwing out all of that other stuff that we don't need, which is awesome. So Ella, can you give everyone some final words of wisdom, especially with it being Heart Month, and we have to be hyper vigilant about our hearts and our health and our PCOS symptoms. So how do we pull this all together?
I think most of the people, your audience, are women. And I do want to say one more thing when it comes to recommendations. We touched on what to eat, right? We touched on like what not to eat, but also how and when, right? A lot of people try to get a control over what they eat, and they just remove the entire food group. No more fat, or no more sugar, no more carbs, right? Oh, I got to get rid of all the animal protein and be vegan, right? The truth is, this not sustainable, and what we should be really paying attention to, instead of making it easier, basically eliminating the whole food group, we need to pay attention to the wisdom of our body and to the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. Those are the cycle controls the hormones, right? And that's why each week we're not the same. Most doctors don't talk about it. Even dietitians don't talk about it, how we are different each week. And as you know, even when we try to eat healthy and we try to diet, sometimes we just have the willpower, we have it all figured out, and then we just got cravings, we get cranky, we just fall off the wagon, and we just do our own thing. And what happens, or when our hormones are fluctuating, right? That's called PMS. And what I teach my clients is how to prepare for that. So during your menstruation and right before the ovulation, you're totally free to eat less, like more of like a vegan or vegetarian diet, because your body is naturally has produced more energy. And then during your post ovulation and right before your period, when your body is producing more hormones, to start your cycle, that's when we need more animal protein, right? And that's when it's more not a carnivore, but we need to make sure we eat more protein to prevent those cravings, to balance it out. And that's what I want your clients to take away, to connect with me and learn more from what I'm offering, to be able to connect the dots, connect that information to their body, and to learn from their body how to create more harmony inside their mind, their heart, and their health. So I want people who, struggling with whatever the health condition, either it's heart or PCOS, to remember that given half the chance, your body will take it and it would heal itself. Okay. And all we need to do is to listen to people who empower us to take control, to feel better about ourselves with the knowledge, and create a lifestyle for ourselves that makes us feel and look our best and make us happy to feel alive.
So, so important. And I am so grateful for you to come on and share all of this information and give us a lot to think about as far as like our guts and our overall health and food. I mean, food is medicine. Who would have ever thought of that before? You know, I love it. So how can people connect with you and find you and follow up with you?
Food is medicine. I love how you summarized it. So on Instagram, it's my first and last name, Ella Davar. Same thing on YouTube. And my website is nutritionistella.com, where I help my clients while I'm working one-on-one and do all the advanced testing for them on microbiome. I deal with things like parasites, dysbiosis, microbial imbalance. And I also am creating a course and a book where people can, without working with me one-on-one, can learn for themselves and, see what they could do to learn from me to make their dream come true and to feel better.
I love it. And I will make sure to share all of your links in the post with the videos. And thank you again for coming and sitting down with me and chatting. And everyone, thank you for joining us today. And make sure to check in. We have lots of content throughout the month for Heart for PCOS. Come learn with us, come join, and come have some fun. Have a great day.